welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good morning. Happy to be here.
Yeah. You seem happy to be here, which I'm not sure.
Should I not be?
I don't know. You seem so energetic and.
Yes, I get that a lot. I do get that a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What do people say?
Just I don't know. That a ball of energy, or like it's way too early for me to be this happy or whatever else.
Yeah. That's cool. It sounds like it's fun to be you.
Yeah, I mean sometimes, not all the time, but often enough.
Yeah. And so can you just start by telling us a little bit? So it's Sydeon, is that right?
Yeah, but you can call me Sid or Sydney, whatever is more comfortable.
What do you prefer?
I like Sid.
Okay, Sid it is. And can you tell us, I'm sure most people know who you are because they're spamming an emote that looks like you in chat. But
that'll do it.
Can you just tell us a little bit about where we can find you on Twitch and on the internet and what you do on the internet?
Oh, yeah, cool. I'm a Twitch streamer. I'm full-time now. You can find me at twitch.tv/Sydeon, and I think all my socials are the same. But yeah, I stream variety. I like to say games, but it's mostly Valorant. But then I switched some other stuff in there, so yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
That's that.
And when did you become a full-time streamer?
About 10 months ago. 10 or 11, yeah.
How's that been?
Amazing. So I actually graduated school with a nursing degree, and then I kind of just was like, well, I'm at a crossroads here. Let me just try out full-time streaming, and it worked out for me. So I'm really, truly happy with what I do.
Congratulations on graduating.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, going full-time as a streamer, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm really happy though. I don't regret any choices I made.
Yet.
Well, there are other choices I regret, but here we are.
Yeah. So Sid, is there something in particular that you wanted to talk about today or anything that I can help you with?
I think some things that, I had brought up prior were just like multiculturalism is a huge thing for me, in a discussion that I have on stream pretty often. Impostor syndrome, moving into full-time streaming and kind of just my life completely flipping the opposite direction of where I thought I was going to go has been a big thing for me lately. So kind of just feeling like I fit in here or belong with where I am.
Okay, awesome. I mean, not that you have imposter syndrome, but I think these are wonderful things to talk about that I think will be, very educational and hopefully helpful. So can you start by telling me a little bit about what multiculturalism means?
Yeah, so for me, I'm half Black and half white, and I've grown up in a community of people that never looked like me. And my entire life, I've been around people who don't look like me. And so it's been an interesting adjustment to just try and balance the two cultures that I share between being Black and white. And I've always found it really difficult. And as I continue to get older, I continue to find myself in spaces where I don't feel well represented. Even on Twitch, I don't necessarily feel well represented as a Black woman. And so having these two cultures is so much of my identity, but I oftentimes don't feel like I, fit in or have people around me who are similar. So it's just a big thing for me to kind of recognize both and then try and figure out how I can live harmoniously with all of it.
Sounds like a lot of moving pieces that you have to continually try to fit together.
Mm-hmm. It feels like that.
Yeah. Because I'm also kind of noticing that if your identity has different facets in any given group, there may be a part of you that fits in, but other parts of you that don't.
Exactly.
That sounds challenging.
It is 100%. I think there's this famous lyric that's too Black for the white kids and too white for the Black. And that's exactly how I feel. For the entirety of my life, that's how I felt. So it is definitely an interesting balance.
Yeah, so I think that reminds me of one of my own kind of experiences growing up. So I am what is known as a coconut, which means brown on the outside and white on the inside.
Gotcha.
So I grew up in East Texas where, I was like not Indian enough for the Indian kids. Like I didn't go to Indian dance class and like didn't know how to do like like I didn't watch Bollywood movies or listen to Indian music, and listen to like, Blink 182 and other angsty emo things.
Yeah.
And then, but also was, faced a fair amount of racial discrimination in East Texas, oddly enough, because I looked Mexican. So most of the insults were actually directed towards a race that wasn't even mine, which was kind of funny in some ways.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how racist are you that you don't even know
No,
what
I
race I am? And then occasionally, appropriate racial insults.
Yes.
But I still think I imagine in some ways it was easier for me because at least I don't know. It sounds more challenging for you than what I remember my experience being. But so can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to grow up with one parent who was Caucasian and one parent who was Black?
Oh, difficult, I guess, because I think there's a phenomena where people more heavily identify with their culture that is kind of discriminated against, right? So I feel like I maybe lean more towards being a Black woman. That's, if you walk past me on the street, you see me as a Black woman, all those things. And I think that I often talked growing up like I forgot about my white side, or like my mom would feel hurt by me because she thought that I would like forget that I'm also white, So that was always really hard to balance with my mom, because I didn't ever want her to think that I wasn't proud to be her daughter or whatever else. But that was difficult. And also I just kind of felt like my mother could never truly understand what I go through as a Black woman, as much as she tries, and is a part of my life and my experiences, and like seen how I've, had to grow up in this world. But I think, there are some things that she will just never understand, Like and what? So, I don't know. I guess like a lot of my experiences as a Black woman, like she's never faced the same discrimination. So she can't like truly understand what I've been through. She can see it and she can hurt for me and be empathetic, which she very much is. But it's just like, she doesn't like walk into stores and notice that people are like watching her or whatever, she doesn't have those thoughts. Whereas like when I walk into a Sephora and I notice that the person at the front door is like kind of following me around, I see those things, whereas she would never notice if she was walking with me. Yeah. So that kind of stuff.
I love how illustrative that example is. Like, because I think sometimes when we think about discrimination, we think about statistics. Like, like things that are like measurable, but what I'm hearing from you is it's kind of just baked into when you walk around. Yeah. It's very like a lot of microaggressions all the time that most people wouldn't recognize unless it's happened to them every time they've walked into, a place. Can you tell me what a microaggression is? Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know the exact description for it, but I would just say that like it's these small undertones of racism that I would face day to day, things like that you wouldn't expect me to really pick out, but someone saying like something I got growing up was like, oh, you're so pretty for a Black woman, like you're so pretty for a Black girl. And it's like, you're not being super aggressively outwardly racist, but you're like putting in this very backhanded portion of what you're trying to say to me. So it's like these very, passive aggressive, sly things that happen. An insulting compliment. Yes. That's what it feels like. Interesting. I actually really like that example as well. So, Sid, I find myself, and, we can talk about whatever you want to, but the thing that I actually find myself so curious about is just wanting to hear more about what your life like is. Like, what is it like? It's so illustrative for me to just, to hear about your experience at Sephora and like just what it looks like. Because I think a lot of times, especially on the internet, words like microaggressions get tossed around, and people will like say like, oh, like microaggressions are BS, or like microaggressions are real. But I think the thing that I appreciate the most about talking to you is how you bring some of these like abstract concepts that people on the internet argue about to life. Because I think everyone, I would hope, can understand, how it's like, oh, you're pretty for a black girl. It's like, it's kind of,
Yeah. The underlying tone of you're pretty for a black girl is like, I don't find black women pretty, but you, oh, you're pretty, which feels really bad. And it's definitely a comment I got growing up all the time. And I didn't realize that it made me feel bad until I got older. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's not a nice thing to say at all.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. It kind of reminds me of like cough syrup, where they like make it artificially sweet, but it still tastes nasty.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So can you just tell me a little bit more about, so it sounds like your mom is white and your dad is black.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and an older brother and an older sister.
Okay. And so what was growing up like for you? Like where, and I know that sometimes people are like you should be sensitive to privacy and stuff. So you don't have to give me like a specific city or anything like that, but I'm just curious, like what was life like for you growing up?
Yeah. So I grew up and I lived with my mom mostly because my parents have been separated since I was young. I lived in the suburbs outside of Seattle. So definitely predominantly white and Korean. I would say that I think I had like a few other black students in school, and like we all knew each other, but I wasn't close with any of them. So I felt like a lot of the time I was making friends outside of my race, which is totally cool and awesome. And like I got to learn about a ton of other cultures and things like that. But it definitely makes you feel really alienated. And I grew up, if I'm being super candid, hating the color of my skin. I hated my skin. I hated that I was different. I hated my curly hair. I didn't like, my more black features that I had. And that took me a really, really long time to accept myself for who I am. And like now I'm completely on the opposite spectrum. I like love the color of my skin. I love my culture, whatever it is. But it was really hard growing up for sure, because all you want to do is fit in, especially in high school. Like the last thing you want to do is be different than everybody else. So I would do things like, I don't know, straighten my hair every single day. I would, if it was sunny outside, I would make sure that I like didn't have any skin showing so that I wasn't getting any darker, like real self-hate stuff growing up. And it was something that I couldn't talk to anyone about because I didn't have anyone who could relate to me. And my dad is like this super proud to be black man, right? And so I didn't want him to feel disappointment or sad if I came to him and was like, I hate being black, that wasn't a conversation that I wanted to have with my dad because I would feel so bad. And then like my siblings, not super close to growing up, had very, very different experiences. So I definitely felt very, very alone, but a part of something at the same time because I was in sports and leadership and like ASB and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, I fit in, but only because I was trying so hard to fit in.
Sid, you do a wonderful job of like constructing a narrative. Like it's so interesting to hear a little bit about, how you kind of piece things together. And it's also kind of interesting because what I'm sort of hearing is that you felt a lot of shame, but you couldn't share that shame with your dad. And at the same time, you kind of like also like identified with being black, and that made it hard for your mom. So I'm sort of noticing that it was hard for you to like really openly and authentically connect with either of your parents.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the kind of the feeling of alienation comes in. Or is that like more related to school?
No, I definitely think it was a little bit of both. And I mean, not being able to relate to my siblings, my parents, or the people that I go to school with was just kind of like feeling alone in that aspect all the time.
You said that you used to hate the color of your skin. Can you help me understand like when you started to have those thoughts? Like how did that happen?
Oh, I couldn't necessarily pinpoint. I want to say maybe around middle school is like when it really became apparent to me that the color of my skin was going to affect the way that people around me treat me or act or what they expect of me. There's so many expectations as a Black woman, my age, but so many expectations as a young Black woman as well.
Can you tell
And
me
so
about
I would,
those? Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, of course. I guess like things like, you don't sound Black is something that I would get all the time. And I'm like, oh, because I'm eloquent and well-spoken and, whatever, I don't sound Black. You expect me to sound this very certain way. That's a comment that, I would get growing up and I didn't really understand. I would be like, oh, what does sounding Black mean? And it's what people are expecting of a Black woman is these very like stereotypical things that you see in movies. And like, that's what you expect. And if you don't get that, people are like shook, Um, so those sort of expectations or as I've gotten older, an expectation that I feel put on me often is that like I need to be this really strong, independent Black woman. And like, yeah, that's what I have to do. And if I'm not that, if I'm vulnerable or any of those type of things, then like I've failed as like this strong, independent Black woman. So the expectations have changed, but they've always been there.
Sounds rough.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I also don't want to make it out to sound like it's all bad or like it's always sucked for me, because I guess that's what it sounds like right now.
Well,
but
that's what I'm asking about.
Okay.
Right. But I'd
Yeah.
love to hear about, how's it been good?
Yeah, I guess it just like, it makes me different. I have these very different experiences than other people. And I feel like not only was I taught empathy from a young age from my parents, I also feel like I learned it through my experiences. Like I don't want other people to feel the way that I've had to feel. And so it's made me this like really empathetic person. So I kind of try and twist them into like positive things that I would never like pass along to other people. Or I also think like now the fact that I have a platform feels really good because I get to talk about my experiences. And I feel like in my chat, at least, so many people relate to me or feel heard or seen, or like I'm here to be representation on Twitch. And so I'm like really proud of that and happy that I can be a part of that too.
How does it feel to be a part of representation on Twitch?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want more. I'm always going to want more. I just remember like, sorry,
Go
what
for
were
it.
you
No,
saying?
go for it.
I remember coming on Twitch and like the first time that I started watching it, it was never something that I could see like myself doing, right? And then I saw another like Black girl streaming and it was like, oh, okay, there are Black people on the platform. Like I could do this, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel represented. And so I like the idea of me being able to do what she did for me for other people. And yeah, of course, I'm always going to want more representation of like Black women in gaming and Black women in Twitch. But I'm happy to be, a start of it and a part of it.
Why do you want more representation of Black women in gaming and Twitch?
Because growing up, like obviously I've always been into games. I've always read comic books. I've always gamed. And then I felt like there wasn't space for me in the community. And when I came on Twitch and then saw nobody that looked like me, it made me feel like there was even less space. And I'm like, wow, is there, could I stream on this platform? Would I be able to make friends, whatever? And then when I found that there is like a community of Black people on Twitch, definitely feels more like you would be accepted. You can be a part of this. And like, despite your race, because growing up the way that I did, and I have, like, you kind of account race into a lot of things,
How do you do that?
I guess a lot of the time I'm like seeking out people who look like me. Like I'm seeking out representation. Like I want to see Black movies, blockbuster movies, like selling out, whatever, those kind of things. And so I just kind of move through life in that way. So I come on Twitch and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited to watch video games. But then on my like third day on the platform, I go, but where can I find the Black streamers? Like where are the Black streamers on here winning? Which is like what I really want to see.
So can you help me understand, like when you see, let's say like Black representation being successful, like let's say like you said, like a, box office or like a, a Black streamer with, let's say 50,000 views or whatever. How does that make you feel to see those things?
It makes me feel great. Like
how so? Help me understand that.
I understand the setbacks that these people have gone through, right? And I understand that they probably felt the same way as me, where they feel like pigeonholed or feel like the space isn't for them. And then they're able to come on and transcend that. So like, I know they had to work really hard and they've probably been through it. And like, I mean, the amount of racist comments that I get in my chat, I can't imagine if you have 50,000 viewers, how much of that you're getting, And so I just recognize how hard it can be. And so it feels very, like, I feel very triumphant for them. Like their win is also my win because like I get to see this, Black creator succeed.
So I'm almost noticing like some degree of like identification with this person. Like there's like I'm getting a strong sense of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so their win is my win. I'm also kind of curious. Can you tell us a little bit, like, have you been pigeonholed? Like you've mentioned a couple of microaggression kind of comments, right? Like you don't sound like a Black girl and you're pretty for a Black girl. Have there been particular times where you feel like you've been kind of, pushed or forced to behave a particular way based on the color of your skin?
I definitely think pushed. Yes, I wouldn't say forced necessarily because I don't think I've ever really like conformed to those ideas that are pushed upon me, except for when I was younger because I was trying so hard to fit in, but like, yeah, now I'm like, you can think this way about me, but that doesn't mean that I have to act that way. But I definitely think, yeah, like in high school, I was, I did sports. That's what I was like supposed to do. I didn't talk about gaming or my interest in it. Like I would go home and play video games and not tell anyone, or like read comments and not tell anyone, that kind of thing, because it didn't feel like it was a space that was available for me. So in those points, yes, I definitely felt pigeonholed.
That's so interesting that you were like publicly into sports and privately into gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and were there particular experiences in middle school or high school that made you feel like fitting in was super important, or, times where you kind of like had to learn that harsh lesson of like, you need to maybe talk differently or straighten your hair or things like that?
I think like, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so sorry, it was a weird abstract question. So let me ask a better one. So you said that you used to hate the way that you look.
Yeah.
So help me understand how you learned to hate the way you look.
I think I just learned it through like the fact that I was different, like always seeing people who look different than me. And like, that's the beauty standard. So the girls who were considered the prettiest in school looked absolutely nothing like me. So if I'm constantly being told like, so-and-so is beautiful, and like that's, everybody is, interested in this girl or thinks she's the prettiest, and then I'm like, well, my hair doesn't look like her, my nose doesn't look like her, my lips don't, my skin doesn't, then it's like you just learn to not like the way that you look when you're the opposite of the beauty standard. But then also through the microaggressions, that definitely like helps with that for sure. And then on top of that, not only am I like getting it in my school, but I'm getting it in media too, like the prettiest celebrities or the people who are, top stars or whatever. It can just be, hard to look around and not see anybody that looks like you.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that it's not so much like you were made fun of or anything like that. Like you weren't like bullied because you were a black girl. It was more like
No.
there's like clearly like everyone kind of agrees on what's good. Like who has the prettiest hair? Top 3, all of them have straight hair. Who's the prettiest girl in the class? All of the girls are white. You know, when you watch a movie, the heroine is usually a white girl.
Yeah.
You know, and even then, I mean, I'm kind of like noticing in media that, you know, you'll have people who go, like you'll have like a movie that's designed for a black audience, which will have a black heroine, but you won't have like a black heroine in like a regular movie, right? Like even there's like separation there, where there's like the regular, they're the movies for everyone, and then they're like the movies for the other people, and y'all get to be the prettiest over here.
Yes.
But you're not going to be the prettiest over here.
Exactly. That's another form of like that pigeonhole feeling. Like I'm supposed to watch those black movies to feel good. And like there's this whole, like I love that there is obviously this like black genre for us, by us, for us to watch, you know? But at the same time, it does like have that effect on you. It's like, well, you're only allowed space separate from what's mainstream.
Yeah. You get to be the prettiest in the special category.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, so, you know, I said I really, really appreciate your characterization, because I think that when I think about racism, what I just realized, I didn't connect this until now, but when I think about racism, the way that I define it is by these things that are upvoted on Reddit, right? Like they're like very overt racism. It's like things on like, you know, like people freaking out and like, you know, I'm walking down the street and someone starts calling me the N-word or whatever. Like people, like everyone's got cell phones, so you tape it, gets uploaded to the internet, gets passed around, everyone looks at, oh, like look at how bad racism is. But what I'm kind of really appreciating from hearing you is that it is systemic, right? It's not like it's not like overt. I mean, there's that too. Yeah. But that you know, there are young girls or boys who are growing up in these particular scenarios where like the rules of the game are set in a particular way that like kind of creates an experience for you, you know? And so how did you start to not hate yourself, or hate the way you look, I should say?
Yeah, I don't know when I really started. I would say maybe like after high school. After high school, I went to college. I joined the Black Student Union, albeit my college was still mostly white. But I definitely had the opportunity to surround myself, and I made the choice to surround myself with other Black people. And I finally felt like I found a community in that. And I saw the way that other people in that community had similar experiences to me, but then other people in that community didn't have that at all. They like grew up in areas where they were always surrounded by black people. And they're just like, yeah, I love myself and I love my skin. And I see that. And I'm like, wow, I want that so badly. Like, I'm tired of hating myself. I've done it for 18 years. Like, it's time to move on. And yeah, I just kind of made a point of like faking it until I made it, you know? And then it was a really long journey. And I would say I'm 24 now. I didn't really like love myself until I was like 22, almost 23 probably. So the last year has been awesome, but you know, finding that was definitely hard.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So what I'm almost hearing is that, you know, when you joined the Black Student Union, I may be simplifying this a bit, but like everyone there is like proud to be Black, and you had all these like feelings of being ashamed to be Black, but they're all proud to be Black. So you're going to pretend to be proud to be Black. Yeah. And then internally, maybe there was some degree of conflict, and then I like faking it till you make it. And then at some point you're like, oh, actually, like I can't take pride in this. That sounds really great. Yeah. I think it highlights for me the importance, or also how long it takes if you've grown up believing something, you know, how long it takes to start changing the way that you think, and how powerful of an influence you may need to kind of, you know, feel that way. I'm also super curious about how many people now in like Black student unions are secretly still partially ashamed of the way that they look or the way they feel. And it's kind of interesting because it sounds like it's not a place that really voices those kinds of experiences because we're all proud, strong, independent Black woman.
Yeah, I wonder, I'm trying to think, did I ever feel like I couldn't share? I guess I put that on myself to feel like I couldn't share that. I'm sure everyone, I could have, I think we definitely could have had the conversation, but because I felt so much shame now for, instead of being a Black person, now I feel shame for being a Black person who's not proud to be a Black person. And so I don't want to voice this either. I think I probably did that to myself.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I also think it's fascinating that when people talk about, positive Black women, that they define them with the same 3 words every single time.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
It just creates another box. It creates an expectation. It puts me in a position where now I feel like if I don't hit those expectations, those 3 words, then it's like, well, am I the right Black? Am I the right Black woman? And so it feels hard to do. But I think one of the things that I want to, like a mold that I want to break, is that Black women are also sensitive, and all these other things that are opposite of the words that they're given to work with.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious, Sid, who makes that box?
I don't know. First thought is like media, and there's like I think I don't know what old trend it is, or if it was a video or what it was, but it was like, I'm a strong, independent Black woman and blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of like stuck, or like the aggressive or angry Black woman has just like stuck in media, and it's like constantly represented that way, it feels like. And so I'm sure it's not just media, but off the top of my head, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, so I can kind of see how media would propagate it. Like what I'm noticing actually is that, and let me know if this is offensive in any way, but like what I'm noticing is actually like, I think that the Black Student Union put you in a box too. Right? That like pride is what we have to feel. And I can understand why they would feel that way, because like you have to fight really hard for that pride.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because I sort of notice, and I know this is like shaky ground, but like a parallel in terms of you not feeling comfortable sharing your shame in that situation because it wasn't like what was socially acceptable. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's why I definitely think it was like I had 2 opposite shames, but both are bad. I guess I kind of viewed one as equally worse because it dug me out of this like really deep hole, Yeah. But essentially, it's the same thing.
Yeah, which is fascinating. There's so much about you that's very yin yang in terms of,
Yes.
Not to capture the color of the imagery, but like really that's the term that I think of. It's not because you're half Black and half white. It's because you're conflicted.
It's just very fitting though.
Yeah. Is that a microaggression or is that fair?
No, I think that's fair.
Okay. Okay. You got to let me know if I microaggress, okay?
I think that's fair. A joke I would have made for sure.
Okay. Yeah, so that's so Sid, I'm really noticing that like, oh man, let me just think for a second. Because I'm feeling something. I just don't know what it is. Yeah, so I guess the main thing that I'm kind of noticing that has changed for you is that you felt uncomfortable with who you were. And then as you started to move in a direction towards like being more accepting of your Black half, for lack of a better term, even then, like there are certain norms that are put on, like actually norms or boxes that I think, Black people put on other Black people, that you have to be a particular way. And that, I think it comes down to kind of the strong, independent Black woman, which I always think it's so interesting that I just hear all 3 of those words. And it's like, you can't be, degenerate, gamer, independent Black woman.
Yes.
But what, and what I'm not surprised that you left nursing school. or not, sorry, left nursing as a career. Because, and this is, I think, what I was kind of hitting on, is that you kind of said that in the last year you've learned to love yourself. And I don't think it's coincidental that you being able to love yourself and stepping away from maybe the path that the world has laid out for you and jumping towards a path that is actually like not easy, right? Like you're on an uphill battle there where, you know, when I mean, occasionally I'll get the racist comment when I stream, but you know, it's not most of what I deal with, thankfully. Whereas like you're choosing to fight this somewhat uphill battle and like, help me understand. I mean, is that fair to say that loving yourself and deciding to go full time on Twitch like has some connection?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's because, you know, in loving myself, I've found this confidence that no matter what I do, like I'm going to do it well. And I like truly believe in myself to make it work. And if it doesn't work, I know I can pivot, like that kind of thing. And that's, I think, a chance that I wouldn't have taken if I was still hating myself. I wouldn't have believed myself. I wouldn't have believed that I could have done it.
So that's so interesting. So like, how did you learn that?
I know, I'm trying to find a better answer for this.
No. That's what we're here for, right? Because I think here's the thing, Sid. What we see for you is somewhat of the finished product. Like you told us a little bit about where you started, a little bit in the middle. But I think when it comes to people who gravitate towards Twitch, I think it's like people who, you know, there's a part of all of us that like is happy to be part of Twitch, but then we're also like ashamed because we're not like the other people.
Yeah.
And I think it would be so curious to try to learn a little bit about how that confidence came about and like where it came from.
I think it helped because my parents were always really supportive of everything that I did. They always believed in me wholeheartedly. So that helped a lot if you're just like constantly being told, which I know not everybody experiences that, especially from their parents. So that's like one portion. Another is that I kept seeing things work out for me. Like I knew I had the work ethic to do it. You know, I just have the motivation to like get things done, and I had the work ethic and like those kind of things. Like I succeeded in like school and like anything that I put myself to, I did well. So once you've seen it go well enough times, you kind of go, okay, this isn't just like a random one-off, like I'm making this happen. Like I feel like I felt a lot of autonomy in the things that happened around me. So it wasn't, you know, any outside forces that made me successful. It was me that made me successful. And I guess I just found confidence, or I found comfort in knowing that everybody else around me has their own stuff going on. Like everyone else is worried about, you know, their meeting today, or they're also feeling insecure or whatever else. As soon as I could look around and be like, oh yeah, all these people around me are human beings too. And they all have their own struggles. It made me go, okay, my struggles are okay because everyone's going through it, essentially. I guess that helped too.
Oh, that's a beautiful answer. So there are a couple pieces of that I think are quite illustrative. Not that I'm like the ultimate judge on this, but one is that I think it's really interesting when you mention autonomy. That's not usually something that I hear when I ask people where their confidence came from. But it's such an interesting way to think about it, because I think people who lack confidence, I think ultimately believe that the world is going to determine what happens to them.
Yeah.
Right? It's sort of like, I don't have the power to change what the world is going to give me. Whereas people who are confident acknowledge that the world, kind of like you said, because at the beginning you were like, if I put my mind to anything, I'll succeed. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true. But then you kind of qualified that in a second. And you said, if I fail, I'll pivot.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing about autonomy, that even if you do kind of stumble, even if you do have a setback, that you actually have agency and that you can affect your future.
Yes.
So that's interesting, because when I talk to people who aren't confident, I don't hear that. You know, I hear people feeling kind of like fatalistic and like that they don't really have a choice and it's not in their control, or that nothing is in their control, or there is not enough in their control. And the second thing is that I think a lot of people who are not confident compare their insides to other people's outsides. So they compare the way that they feel to what they see other people doing.
Yeah.
And my favorite example of this is like class presentations. Everyone is nervous. No one looks
Yeah.
nervous.
Yes.
But I'm really, I think it's really interesting to see that you sort of realize that, like, we're all struggling here.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's okay to struggle, which is cool. Can I ask you a question that may be like a little bit, I feel like there's a positive vibing, right? Like we're talking like, oh my God, like, Sid, like, you're so brave. Like, you've grown into a strong, independent Black woman. You're breaking barriers on Twitter. Like, all that's true, right? It's like, I'm with you. And I genuinely feel that excitement and pride. But I want to ask you something that I just really struggle with as a medical professional. And as someone, and I'm going to lean on you for expertise here, okay?
Okay.
Can I do that? Can we do that? Or you want to stay safe? Like,
no,
is it going to be like cheerleading?
We do not need to stay safe here.
Okay.
It's okay.
So this is something I really struggle with. So like, I know there are people who get discriminated against. I know we have beauty standards. I accept all of that. I've faced a fair amount of racism myself. Interestingly enough, I also have like positive racism, which is kind of weird. Like I get stereotyped. Like I remember when I was in med school, I would have female Black colleagues who, when we were all doctors, people would refer to them as nurses. And when I was like a first year medical student in my suit and tie, everyone thought I was a doctor because I was Indian.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, so like I even have the benefits in some ways of being brown. But what I really struggle with as a medical professional is like fat acceptance. Like, what do you think about that? Like, can you help me understand how you view sort of like the fat shaming, fat acceptance movement?
Yeah, I guess it's interesting for me because I don't necessarily have direct experience, right? So I can empathize, sympathize, try my best to understand what, people who have experienced fat shaming have gone through, but I myself haven't because I have the privilege opposite of that. So for me, in terms of like the movement, I guess, I'm always going to support people who are like healthy and feel good about themselves, right? So like if you're someone who has been discriminated against your entire life because of your body, but you feel healthy in yourself and you're happy with the way that you look and like you've like worked so hard to accept yourself, I'm going to be appreciative of your acceptance. And like, I'm proud of you for that, of course. And then if you are in a different direction and you're like, I want to lose weight, like people in my family have struggled with this. So I've like seen kind of firsthand the struggle, but I've never experienced. So it's kind of hard to say, but like in watching my family go through like the weight loss, acceptance, that kind of thing, it's like you can try so hard and it can be one of those uphill battles all the time to lose weight. And then eventually you can get to a point where it's like, I'm happy with where I'm at. Then I'm like proud of that too. I guess my thing, I'm like really dancing around an answer because it's so hard to say when you don't really know, but I just want to be supportive, I guess, of like whatever journey it is. If it's a self-acceptance journey, I'm supportive of that. If it's a weight loss journey, I'm supportive of that.
So
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Was it okay that I asked it, or is that like too much of a,
No, I think it's fine. I mean, like my goal coming on here today was to be super open and candid. So I'm happy to talk about whatever.
Yeah. So I really thank you so much for engaging in the conversation because I think it's like, just as someone who's faced a lot of discrimination, and as you were kind of talking about, like I can understand a lot of aspects of that perspective.
Yeah.
In terms of having a particular beauty standard, right? So like when you think about a beauty standard, like it's not equal in terms of body types. And there's actually like there's research that started 100 years ago that human beings basically have 3 body types, and that all 3 are like normal variants within the population. There's an ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph. And endomorph is what we call big boned. Ectomorph is what we call like, people who have a fast metabolism. They can like eat whatever they want to and they kind of won't gain weight. And then mesomorph, it tends to be what most of our male actors are in terms of they're like, muscular, don't have too much fat, but aren't too skinny. So there's definitely like standards within these 3 biological body types that is not equal. I can kind of get behind that. I think what I'm really curious about is when you say like healthy, like you say that, you can support anyone in their journey, which is what I try to do.
Yeah.
So I try to just, meet people where they're at and support them in terms of like self-acceptance and stuff. But I'm curious, like when you use the word, healthy, what does that mean to you when it comes to fat shaming or fat acceptance?
So I used to work at an eating disorder clinic actually when I was in nursing school, and I got to see a lot of people who were mentally unhealthy because of the things that they had experienced, right? So like a lot of these eating disorders were like a product of their environment, and like you're, like being told this your entire life, or you're in sports or whatever, and this, that about your weight. And like, that's really, really mentally unhealthy, which obviously affects your physical self. And so to me, I'm like, if you are working towards being mentally and physically healthy, like that's what's important. Like if accepting your weight and feeling comfortable where you are improves your mental health, it's, they kind of like go hand in hand. And so for me, it's like that is health. Like you feel good about your weight, you're accepting of it, like you're managing it, that kind of thing. And when I say managing, I just mean like you've like, I don't want to say that in order to be healthy, you have to like eat less or work out more, but like, you're just like eating well, you're feeding your body what it needs, I guess. And so that might be more for one person than it is for the other person. And that's still healthy for them because that's what they need. Does that make sense?
I'm getting the sense that you're trying to... No, it's okay. Like I this is why I was honestly asking for permission, because I recognize I may have just dropped you off in a minefield, Sid.
Well, it's not necessarily that. It's just I'm not well versed on this at all.
Sure.
Like in terms of like my time at the eating disorder clinic is like I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. So when it comes to being overweight, I have only seen it in like my family. And so, yeah, definitely I am trying to be careful because I don't want any of my ideas to be misconstrued. Sure. And ultimately for me, it's just about, is the individual happy with where they are? Do they feel mentally healthy and do they feel good about their body? If so, awesome. If not, I would be happy to like help support someone to get there.
So let me make sure I understand you, because I want to acknowledge this too. So here we are, two people who have body types that generally speaking are more acceptable in society, that conform, generally speaking, to, a beauty standard that society has. And we're commenting about the experience of people that we're not. It's like, two old white men talking about what it's like to be a young black woman. Right. Yeah. So let's just acknowledge that. And I appreciate that acknowledgement. Part of the reason that I actually asked you is because actually we're both separate from it. So I'm really curious because you have lived through, I think, some of the things that are similar to what these people face. And so that's why I was kind of curious about, because I'm never going to, just like you said, I'm never going to, maybe I will, but, I've already grown up being an ectomorphic body type. So like throughout high school and stuff, I was like super skinny. Now I have like a solid dad bod, which is like, that's just where I am now. But, and maybe there's some amount of acceptance there and appreciation that I've got a dad bod. But, like I really appreciate your carefulness and your stating very clearly that you don't know what it's like to live in that person's shoes. And that's actually why I really also appreciate what you said, which is sort of like, it's not about kind of an objective right or wrong. It's about supporting someone in their journey and kind of trying to help them get to the goals where they want to go. Right. And which I'm with 100%. And this is something that, much like you, I've worked with eating disordered patients. And the challenge there, though, is that I noticed you kind of said like mental health and you said like acceptance. But I'm a little bit curious, and you kind of will tiptoe a lot, and so I'm going to pin you down a little bit with all those caveats, okay? So you kind of said, like, if they're eating food that is what their body needs, and to recognize that different people have different caloric requirements and things like that, I think, like, professional like Olympic swimmers will eat like 9,000 calories a day or something ridiculous because that's just what their body needs. But what about for people who aren't eating food that's physically healthy?
In terms of like junk food?
Sure. Or excessive calories.
Yeah. I mean, I can't be one to say like you should or shouldn't do that, right? It's not my job. I'm not their doctor or their nutritionist or whatever. But as like, I guess if it were my friend who was eating in an unhealthy manner, I definitely think it kind of depends on what relationship I have with that person. But of course, like if I could be there to help, if they want to have a more healthy lifestyle, then I'm like happy to be there supporting that kind of thing. But I also know that it's really hard to like force someone to do something that they don't want to do, you know? And I'm not going to try and be like, oh, well, you should eat less or you should eat healthier. You should come to the gym with me or like those kind of things, you know, because unless they've explicitly asked for that kind of support, I'm not going to force that on them.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I really am grateful that you're talking about this because I think it's helped me navigate how I'm going to work with some people that I, have in a clinical capacity. So here's the kind of key takeaway that I have, which makes so much sense. Because I think with eating disorders, we sort of have an objective right that we're shooting towards as medical professionals that is kind of independent of their particular views. And that's why I get really kind of confused about how to handle fat shaming versus fat acceptance. Because I can acknowledge a lot that, there are unfair beauty standards and things like that. So I'm there. And at the same time, one of the most devastating things I could say in this kind of situation is that fat acceptance and fat shaming, it can be correlated with an eating disorder, right? So to say, take this journey of acceptance and pathologize it and say, you're sick.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think after talking to you, I now understand that I think it's kind of irrelevant, that really the goal is to accept, because this is what I do with people who do have eating disorders, is, you accept them for who they are. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of see what they're willing to do, what they're interested in doing. You kind of, as a treater, I try to align my goals. I don't determine goals for my patients. I align my goals based on what they want and kind of accept them for who they are and where they are. And then, offer an opinion maybe, but like not to say that that's, it is kind of objectively right in some situations. Like sometimes when I'm working with like hospitalized people who like, are in late stages of starvation and stuff. But even then, usually in those cases, the more that I can accept where they are and what their goals are, the more effective treatment is.
Absolutely. I think like patients feel really supported too when that's done. Like when you're accepting and listening of what they want.
And I know it sounds kind of weird, but sometimes what the conversation turns into is like, there are medical consequences to your decision, but you're actually allowed to make those medical consequences, right? It's your choice. And if this is the life that you want to live, whether it's an alcoholic who's got, fatty liver disease or a smoker who's, well on their way to emphysema, people get to make choices, and they get to make choices that can damage their body. And if that's the life that they want to live, and now I recognize I'm doing it again because suddenly I'm lumping in fat shaming and fat acceptance with like smoking and things like that. That's something I try to avoid. But I do think that, or eating fast food, let's say, which is something I'm guilty of from time to time. But thank you so much for kind of taking that tangent. And,
of course.
Helping. I feel like I understand it a lot better. Cool. So do you want to talk about imposter syndrome or any questions, or what do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I'm pretty open to anything. I have like seen you chat about imposter syndrome before. So if you're like totally sick of it, we could talk about something else too. But it's, I think ails a lot of streamers. So
So tell me about imposter syndrome. Why do you think that you have imposter syndrome?
I think part of it is like, I never expected myself to be here. And I kind of like always thought I was going to be doing something in the medical field or science, and then to kind of like switch it so quickly.
It's never
so
too
hard.
late.
Yeah. Well, it is never too late. And that's, that's part of my pivot that I was talking about earlier is like, I have, I'm here and I'm doing this, but if it ever comes to it, I'll just, pivot to nursing and whatever. But yeah, I just always thought one thing for myself and then to switch and have another, you're kind of like given this idea that you need to dream about whatever it is you're going to do. And you're going to need to work so hard in school, like most of your life, to get where you will be as an adult. Right. But like, I didn't spend 10 years streaming and like building this craft or whatever it is. And so to be where I am now kind of feels like, well, I didn't work that hard, where obviously I did. You have to work hard to like stream for the most part.
Sid,
but,
what do you deserve?
Well, I feel like I don't deserve most of the things that I have, but I think that other people, like my friends and my family, would look at me and say that I deserve it, which is why I try and like reframe my brain to think so. But it's just hard to feel deserving of the life that I get to live now, like that I get to wake up and do something that I love every day and be a part of such a cool community and like those kind of things. It doesn't necessarily feel like I get really awesome opportunities, and when they're brought to me, I'm like, why is this for me? Like, why are you bringing this to me? Or what did I do? You know?
Okay.
Whenever I say it, it obviously like sounds really silly, but it's just one of those things in the back of your head that you have to like work through all the time.
Why does it sound silly?
I don't know. I guess like when I say it to friends or people around me, they're always like, well, you can't say that about yourself, or you are deserving of what you've done. Like, you've worked really hard. And so if people are constantly telling you the opposite, then you feel really silly for thinking those things, or I feel really silly for thinking.
Yeah. So let me ask you, when, are your friends accepting you in that moment?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
I would disagree.
I don't think they're trying to tell me that I'm being silly. I think that they're trying to combat those negative feelings that I have.
Yeah. So are they accepting you, or are they combating you?
Okay, fair enough.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. I guess that's the way that I deal with it too when my friends come to me. So then I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing it wrong too. Because to me, If a friend comes and is like, oh, I don't think I deserve this opportunity, I'm like, well, no, of course you do. Like, you worked so hard for this and like blah, blah, blah. And that's always felt like the right thing.
Yeah. So now this is great because we're back in the Black Student Union.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or, oh, of course, like everyone deserves it, man. Like, oh, we work so hard. Like, you're strong and you're independent and you've worked so hard. You absolutely deserve it. Mm-hmm. Well, you're crazy for thinking that you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Now, hold on a second. Because you've done this before. This is your strategy, Sid. Yeah. You fake it till you make it. You're going to have this internal struggle where a bunch of people are going to tell you deserve to be proud, and eventually they'll convince you, and eventually you'll understand it for yourself and all that kind of good stuff. Like, I think it's good. I think it's normal, right? They're trying to be supportive. They care about you.
Yeah.
I don't think they have negative intentions.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't think they're accepting you. I know it's kind of weird. Because, like, and this is where I'd kind of ask, like, do people get what they deserve?
Sometimes I'm sure. Other times I'm sure not.
And so it's kind of interesting because if you're saying, if the structure of your imposter syndrome is I don't deserve this, there are two things. One is you can convince yourself that you deserve it, or you can say, so what? Why do you need to deserve it? Like, why can't you just, like, I don't deserve, honestly, Sid, just between me and you, I don't deserve 90% of what I've got. Like, I really don't. And I don't think I say that out of, like, shame. I think it's just true. Like, my kids are amazing. Like, I have not done that much good in the universe to deserve having my kids. In fact, I don't even deserve the professional success that I have, to be honest. I fucked up royally. Like, most people fuck up really royally until the age of 26 and 27, and they don't get to wind up where I am. I don't think I actually deserve it. I think I'm lucky. What do you think about that?
I have questions.
Good.
One, I'm curious if, like, does that feel like you're discrediting yourself?
No, I think it's
the things that you've done.
No, I think it's actually accurately crediting myself. So I think that the credit that I deserve is the effort that I put in. It's not the outcome. It's not the success. What I get credit for is applying to medical school 3 times in a row and not giving up. But the third time, if I didn't get in, I mean, I didn't get in the first 2 times. So like, I don't think I deserve to get in the third time. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
So you're...
Yeah, I had another question, but now I can't really remember it, so.
Okay. So I know it's kind of a weird way of thinking, because it's clear to me you've done a lot, and I think your strategy will work. People will eventually convince you that you deserve it.
Yeah.
If you keep getting brainwashed, it'll happen. And then you'll have
Fair
another,
enough.
Worked once, it'll work again.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I know it sounds kind of weird, but like, if you get something that you deserve, I know it's weird, but it's like, in a weird way, it's hard to feel grateful for it. And if we think about where resentment comes from, it's not getting what you deserve. So I would say, oddly enough, like we can try to convince you, like, oh, like, Sid, you're a strong Black woman, like you deserve it, like the world has denied it to you and you've worked so hard and like you absolutely deserve your success. Like, I'm totally fine with that line of reasoning. I really am. I think I think even if you don't deserve what you have, like you can still be grateful for it and be like, I lucked out. That's a pass for me. I'm going to try to help other people. And like, there are people who have been, transformative in my life and like people who inspired me to become a Twitch streamer. I actually don't deserve the success I have on Twitch, but I'll take it. I'll be grateful for it. And I'll try to make the world a better place with the platform that I have. What do you think about that?
I think that particular reasoning is so hard for me to kind of break what I've told myself my entire life in terms of like autonomy. How we spoke about it earlier, it's like very much like, well, if I want to get somewhere, I have the power to do that, So then the whole like luck thing is really hard to fit into this idea that I've always had, And I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it. I'm absolutely not opposed to it all. Super open-minded to those type of things. It's just more like I'm going against the grain in thinking that way, or it's a little bit harder for me to think that way, which I'm willing to do.
Love it. Love it. So here's what I love so much about your response. So generally speaking, if we think about growth is actually stepping away from the things that we used to believe. Right? So like, it's kind of, I'm sure that sort of makes sense, but a lot of times like growth is people, and this is kind of what what I've seen in people who are successful is that what gets them to their point of success becomes maladaptive at some point. And that as people continue to like grow and become more successful, they have to let go of the things that got them there, which is terrifying. So one of my supervisors once told me that growing up is literally giving up what used to work. So I'm with you that at some point you had to sort of discover that confidence comes from autonomy. But I think actually we can squeeze it in if we don't want to talk about luck. But like, I think there's some philosophy here, but I think the key thing here is I think what you have autonomy in is your choices, not the outcomes. What do you think about that?
I agree. I feel like my choices like dictate the outcomes, like it's like a causal relationship, which is not necessarily true. Sometimes I can work so hard and nothing will come of it, or I can work really hard and something will come of it. It really can go other ways. It's just easier for me to think that like, if I work really hard, then it's going to be really great,
There you go. That's the problem. And you've just figured it out.
Yeah.
Your mind chooses the easy route because otherwise the world is a fucking terrifying place.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
The idea that it's out of my control really is terrifying.
Yeah. But let me explain something to you, Sid. I'm not that, I don't really understand this stuff. Maybe you can go ask an actually successful Twitch streamer. But I would argue that you actually can't control who shows up when you stream. And if we're saying success means like how many people are watching, you can't control that. All you can control is like clicking the go live button. What you're wearing, you can control. What you play, you can control. What you say, you can control. The attitude that you bring, you can control. But you can't control who shows up.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely a terrifying way to think about life, because what I'm asking you to do is actually not surrender your autonomy, technically, because you still have choice, but you get to, if you're crushing on someone and you ask them out, that you get to control. Whether they say yes or not, you don't deserve. And if you want to understand half the resentment of the internet, it's crushing on someone and, not getting the answer that they want, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you. I'm happy to hear that you're saying, I don't quite accept that. Like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm open to it, but I'm not willing, which is great. I don't think you should accept it. I think you should think about it.
Yeah. No, I definitely think I am thinking about it. I guess one of my things, and like, I hate to use the term, but I would definitely consider myself a control freak. And so I work really hard. Like, that situation where it's like I'm crushing on someone, I would not say anything until I knew that the answer was like 99% gonna be yes. And if I knew it was 99% gonna be no, I wouldn't say anything. So I like put myself in positions where the risk is really low. And I've like pretty much always lived my life that way until it came to jumping into streaming. That's like the riskiest choice I've ever made, for sure. And it feels like the only one.
And what was your experience of jumping into streaming?
It worked out fantastically. Obviously there's like lots of, downsides to streaming and whatever else, but like I'm the happiest I've ever been. So I took a risk and it really worked out.
But Sid, it could have failed.
It could have.
But then why would you do that?
I guess because I was, I don't know if I was confident. I guess it was just like, no matter what, I'm going to be okay. Even if it fails, I know I can do something else.
But what about
I've prepared myself.
Like,
well, I don't know. It went out the window for that one decision. For that one singular decision, I just left it up to chance.
And what do you think about using that strategy again? Was that just a one-off, or you think maybe
it sounds terrifying?
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. I don't want to do it again. It happened this one time. There's no way it happens twice.
You lucked out.
Yeah, I might have.
Right? So, because you certainly didn't deserve it. Right?
It doesn't feel like it, no.
Yeah.
To my standards, it doesn't feel like it.
And I know it sound kind of weird, right? Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yeah. You don't deserve it. I don't think you deserve success on Twitch. I think what you're entitled to is what you choose to do. So I don't applaud if you want me to cheer for you and you want me to say, you go girl, I'm not going to say it because you're successful on Twitch. I'll say it because you decided to step away from nursing and hit the go live button. For that, I'm 100% in your corner. Whether people show up or not is like, that's not up to you.
Yeah.
And so what I judge you for, what I value you for, what I respect you for is not your success. It's for your choices. What do you think about that?
I think it feels good because so much of the way that we are taught to value people in this society is based off of success. So to be valued off of something else feels good. As counterintuitive as it may seem, like, oh, you told me that I don't deserve this, I'm sure chat, D:, what the heck, whatever, but ultimately, like, you're saying that you're proud of me for doing something outside of my comfort zone, for taking that risk, whatever it is, rather than like proud of the success, which feels good because I had autonomy in the choices that I made, but no autonomy in the success.
Yeah. And so then now we have to talk about the fun stuff, which is like, so you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but since you mentioned that you're not going to ask someone out until you're 99% sure they're going to say yes, are you in a relationship right now? Do you feel comfortable answering that? I'm seeing someone, yes. Okay. So like, is it okay if we talk a little bit about, and you can say no, I can see your, so maybe I should steer clear of this.
I just haven't told my chat. So if my chat's in here and they're like, girl, so that's all.
No, I'm not so concerned about the details of your personal life. What I think it's a really good, what I think is useful is that rigging the odds in your favor. Because when it comes to romantic interactions, boy, do we do that. And what I want to have a conversation about is like, not so much the details of what's going on, but like what was in your head in that process of like approaching in early phases. How did you try to stack the deck? Why does the deck need to be stacked? Why do you have to wait until 99% to like shoot your shot?
Because I'm terrified of rejection.
Okay. But what does that mean?
That means that, like, literally worst case scenario, this person is not as interested in me as I am in them or whatever else. And that would put me in shambles. So
how does that put you in shambles?
I don't know, because I just don't, I know not to take it personally, right? Like, it's probably...
No, you don't.
Well, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it doesn't feel good. No one likes to be rejected, right? It doesn't feel good to be rejected. So I don't want to be rejected.
There you go. But don't feed me that line of bullshit that you were going down a second ago.
Well, what the thing that I like try and tell myself is like, if someone rejects me, it's not a me thing. It's because it's like wrong time or like whatever else, you know, unless someone is like explicitly like, I don't want to date you because XYZ, then obviously I'm like, okay, this is a me thing and whatever. But in a way to cope with rejection. Oh,
hold on. So if someone says it's a you thing, how would you feel?
I'd be like, damn, that really sucks. Now I need to take a look at like why XYZ is so bad, or I didn't know XYZ, so let's fix XYZ if I think it needs to be fixed. If it's someone like, I don't like the way you organize your shoes and like whatever, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But if it's a really valid reason that someone doesn't like me, then
just think about what you said, because that's brilliant. Right? So you're saying like, if I get the fear of getting rejected, I'm going to assume it's going to feel personal. But if someone actually told you no, and it's because of something personal, your response to that is fucking crushing it, dude. It's like, I'm going to do some introspection. I'm going to see like, is this something I actually want to change? You're not actually going to wind up in shambles if someone personally rejects you.
Yeah, I guess it would still suck though. Like
yes.
It would feel really bad.
I'm with you that it'll feel bad. But I also want to point out that if someone actually rejected you as a person, I think you're going to handle it bizarrely well.
Yeah, I would explore those feelings. Like, why is it something that's valid? Do I agree? Should I be working on this? Whatever else.
Yeah, which doesn't sound like shambles to me. Now, I'm not doubting that you'll wind up in shambles. We'll get there in a second. You will wind up in shambles. But let's just understand that if the scenario that you are so afraid of actually does happen, I think you'll actually handle it pretty well.
Yeah, I'd be all right.
But if you get rejected, you'll wind up in shambles, and we'll get to that. That all has to do with self-confidence and imposter syndrome and all that crap.
Okay.
We'll get there in a second. But can we acknowledge for a second that instead of feeding me the line of BS, which is like, oh, like, don't take it personally. No, you'd like... If you did take it personally, if someone said, this is a you thing, you would actually introspect, you'd pivot. It's actually what makes you awesome, right? You'd like come out of that kind of badass because you're someone who takes feedback and works on yourself and you try to like be a good person and all that shit, you know, so that's good. So if someone, you know, with a particular person, like what is the thought of someone saying no? Like how does that make you feel?
I mean, yeah, I guess I would take it personally because it's probably a me thing. And but I that's also expecting someone to tell me. Like a lot of people just say random bullshit, right? Like I am expecting that person to be like, yeah, this isn't gonna work out because blank, you know? Whereas I feel like a lot of the time people are like, this isn't gonna work out. And then I'm sitting there like, well, why isn't it gonna work out? What did I do? And it's like this really deep, dark, ugly hole that I don't want to go down.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? So when someone doesn't give you a reason, when there's a question mark, what does your mind do?
Oh, I would be haunted for like years to come.
Okay, so let's think about that for a second. So like this is going to be kind of weird, okay, Sid? Because we're... Okay. Where does your mind know how to fill in that question mark? Like where does it, you know, because it could be like, you know, because like when we are faced with a question mark in life, our mind supplies us with answers.
Yeah.
So where does all that stuff come from? Like what kind of thoughts would you have?
It would be stuff that I've seen in like TV or movie TV or movies, it would be like what I've seen happen in my, like with my friends or with my family, or like reasons why, you know, they've been dumped or whatever else.
Tell me. I mean, don't, you know, no violating of privacy or anything, but tell me, what does that actually look like?
Yeah. So, I guess I've seen like so I watch a shit ton of reality TV shows, specifically dating ones. Okay. It is my vice. It is my vice. Love Island binges for 12 hours at a time. Okay. So the disappointment in your face. But like, I'll see people like, yeah, it's not going to work out because you are too hot-headed or something like that. Right. Then I'm like, oh my God, am I too hot-headed? I know that's not true. So what's the next one? Is it because I'm not emotionally available? Well, that very well might be true. So I would assume something like that. Or I am not vulnerable enough is like, okay, now I'm just like telling you my relationship fears. I'm scared. Yeah, I'm not vulnerable enough with my partner. Or something like, I'm really scared to be boring. I'm really scared to bore my partner.
Okay. So now I'm getting somewhere. So
yeah.
So good job. You're telling me your emotional fears.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with the reason they rejected you. What your mind fills in is coming from you. Right? So why do we fear failure? Because here's the thing. If you stack the odds in your favor and they say yes, what happens to all your doubts about your emotional availability and you're scared to be boring and all that crap? If they say yes, what happens to all those insecurities?
I mean, they're definitely still there.
They're
damn
just
kind
right
of like subsided for the moment that they're like, yeah.
You're damn right. And then if I'm just going to assume a heteronormative perspective for a moment. So like if you text him over a weekend and he doesn't respond, what happens to those dormant fears?
They just pop right back up.
There we go.
Yeah.
So when you stack the odds in your favor and you trick them into saying yes, in the back of your mind, we're going to act. We're going to put on this act. We're going to be, look at you. Like in the first 30 seconds, what did I say about you? Look at how lively you are. Heaven forbid you appear to be boring. Oh my goodness. Right?
Yeah.
And so as long as you like stack the odds in your favor, I know this is kind of weird, but you're actually hamstringing yourself in terms of developing confidence. Because if you put on this show and you like work extra hard to not be you, because heaven forbid they see all that ugliness on the inside. So I'm going to put on this act. I'm going to make sure that this person's going to say yes. But then it's tricky because like when you say you're kind of not emotionally available, I think it sounds like what you're not comfortable doing is being vulnerable in a relationship.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but it feels like it's in the right direction. Thoughts?
It does for me too. Yes.
I feel like I should give you some kind of answer instead of just make you feel naked on stream.
No. It's okay. It's okay.
I will help you. Just give me a second.
Fair enough.
I ended up, so this is the problem when I tend to be right, is like usually when I'm wrong, I can ask more questions.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say things and it seems to be right, I like hit the end of the train like way too quickly. So you got to give me any thoughts or questions about this?
No, I guess it's like, one of those, you pulled the tablecloth out and like everything kind of shattered. Not really, not in a bad way, but just sort of like, oh yeah, well, these insecurities are my own and I'm projecting them into like the way that I handle relationships, or like these fears are never going to go away no matter how much validation I get from my partner. It's like a Band-Aid. It feels like a Band-Aid.
Okay, now we're going to, no, they will go away. They're absolutely.
Okay.
But what you need to get from your partner is not validation. Because here's the thing, like what you need to get, here's the problem. You can't, if you're tricking someone into falling in love with you, Sid, stacking the odds 99% in your favor. You're going to do your hair cute, you're going to look cute, and it's going to be great. And like, he's not going to know what hit him. Like all that stuff is fantastic. But then the problem is that like, you can never have confidence that he's into you. Right? Because it's the odds stacked in your favor. Because you've compensated in your mind. The more you stack the odds in your favor, the more you're compensating for all the negative stuff. And so if he says yes, why did he say yes? Is it because of the way that you stack the odds? Or is it because... Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess one thing that I do want to say is like the whole stacking the odds in the favor thing feels very preliminary for me. Like once I'm past that initial, like I'm interested in this person and that they're equally interested in me, like that stuff kind of goes out the window. But I also feel like everybody puts on their best face when they're like beginning dating someone.
Yeah, I'm not saying like,
that makes sense.
Be slovenly. You go out, but so that's a really good point. So like what happens is you start to stack the odds in your favor, right? Like they say yes, now you feel reassured, you can show them a little bit more. And then we get to your other fears, which is like, you're not emotionally available. You're scared to be bored and whatever. And so then I think the next thing is that if we like talk about relationships and if you're dating someone, at some point you're going to have like level 2 of that thing. I don't know how else to put it, but you're going to have an opportunity to stack the odds in your favor and not show something, or be vulnerable for a moment and give the other person a chance to accept or reject you. And the confidence comes when you actually like put yourself out there and give him a chance to reject you.
Yeah.
Right? So like show, and that can be incredibly terrifying because you don't actually know, like, the thought that you'll be rejected for all of these things that because you're afraid, right? And you don't ever want to give yourself a situation where you will be proved correct. Because right now you've got doubt on your side, baby. You could be wrong. It's all my fucking insecurities. Thank God. It's not real. It's just my insecurities. But if you ever take a chance and it turns out that your insecurities are real, then you're SOL. With me?
Yeah.
So it's the trickiest thing in the world, but like we can never, like this is what paralyzes people, is that the insecurities that we have, we never really give people an authentic chance to like, it's not about validation. It's about like testing them. Mm-hmm. And instead, when you tell your friends, all they're going to do is reassure you. But what does that do to your insecurities?
It's like a Band-Aid fix again.
Yep. And they'll come back. Yeah. And so when I asked you about developing confidence, when you say fake it till you make it, like I think you made there's something very real there. Mm-hmm. I don't think they just convinced you. I think that in some way there is conditioning. Right. So they started to tell you particular things. And this is where, honestly, if I hope I can authentically be like, oh my God, you're watching dating shows. Because this is where there may be a real thing going on, which is that if your mind, like, I know it sounds weird, but we do get conditioned by what we're exposed to. So in the case of Black Student Union, you got exposed to like tons of like positive language. And so you started to like really test it for yourself. I don't actually think that dating, I would be curious, but I don't think it's really the dating show's fault. But I would be curious if you kind of cut back on the dating shows, or you even acknowledge that this is the dating show talking, and see its effect on your mind, whether that would help. But those things don't even approximate reality, right?
No,
when you watch okay,
no.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's all bullshit. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like it's stuff that I've always watched though. Like even when I was younger, I watched like, I don't know, Next and Parental Control and like all of that garbage. So it's hard for me to say the take that I would have on relationships if I wasn't watching it.
Yeah, I gotta say, the more that I think about it, the more I think I'm just kind of memeing with you, that I don't really think, because it sounds like your insecurities are based on real experiences, actually, which is what they usually are.
Yeah.
Like, because something tells me that, being emotionally unavailable is not like what they demonstrate on dating shows.
Yeah, I guess sometimes, like when I see, there's definitely like a season that I was watching with my friends and there was this girl who like could not share her feelings. I was like, oh my God, like my friends were like, oh, look, it's you, like those kind of things. And it's like, that's me. But it is an experience that I've had on my own in dating. And then it's like, you just see it in someone else and you're like, oh, that's how I act. That's crazy.
So maybe this is a chicken or egg issue. Because maybe it's not the dating shows that condition you, but maybe it's your own. Because that's why we watch Twitch, right? That's why people actually watch this channel. It's because the people on here are like representations of what we ourselves experience.
Yeah.
So So now I think if we want to try to make this productive, because now for some reason I'm feeling bad. I'm not quite sure why. But so I want to try to help you be more emotionally available. What do you think gets in the way of you being emotionally unavailable or emotionally available? What makes it hard for you?
I think there's a lot of things. If I'm getting super personal about it, two things in my life come to mind first. One is that my mom, and watching her date. So like my dad and my mom separated when I was young, like 3 or something like that. And my mom has like been in and out of love a lot of times growing up. And so I was constantly witnessing her put her heart on, like she wears her heart on her sleeve, right? She's very emotionally available, like upfront about those kind of things. And I just saw it not work out so often that it made me go, well, I need to be the complete opposite. And I don't want to go through like what my mom went through, you know? So that's one of them. And then I think the other one is this strong, independent Black woman box that I'm supposed to live in. Makes me feel like if I am vulnerable and open or like weak, you know, like that's seen as weak. It's the opposite of like this box that I'm supposed to be a part of. And so it makes it really uncomfortable and hard for me to express the way that I feel.
Damn, you were introspective. You're good at this.
Thank you.
It's like speed running. Okay. All right, so I've got 3 things for you. Number one, I think it's makes sense, right? So you saw firsthand over and over and over again the consequences of being emotionally available. Mm-hmm. And you were like, this is a bad strategy. It leads to suffering. And so we're not going to do that. So I think oddly enough, changing our behavior, like if we want to become more emotionally available, the first thing to understand is that emotional unavailability is not a problem. It's a solution. So it's a solution that protects you. So this is the biggest mistake in general that I see with people trying to change themselves is they see the thing that they want to change as a problem that needs to be fixed. Whereas what they really need to understand is that is a solution. That as long as the problem that's fixing is there, it's going to be really hard to like let it go. So I don't know exactly how. So I think essentially what you're saying is that like you're doing it to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like protecting me from that rejection or whatever else.
Yeah. So do you have a therapist?
I do.
Actually, okay. So I think this is, have you talked about this with your therapist?
A little bit, yeah.
So I think this is the great thing to do. I would recommend that you spend this time like with your therapist. And what I would actually recommend you do is like talk about the actual experiences of watching your mom go through what she went through. And something cool will happen there. I mean, it's going to hurt when you recall it. But the cool thing is that the more you kind of like process and metabolize those emotions, the less the less important that shield will become. It's just how it works, okay? The second thing is the box. Now, this is important, Sid. You got to let yourself be a weak, dependent Black woman.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have to, like... That's going to be tough, but I think that's the short of it. Like, so I think the problem with a lot of this, you know, acceptance stuff is that we only accept a certain kind of acceptance.
Yeah.
And you know, like, we should, like, accept people who are, like, overweight, and we should accept minorities, but heaven forbid we be compassionate towards people who support Donald Trump. Screw those guys, or like we shouldn't be compassionate towards like anti-vaxxers or anti-maskers or whatever, right? Like we have, it's kind of interesting because as a society, we sort of have something that is acceptable to cheer. And if you don't live up to that, then you don't deserve, And so I love the way that you kind of talk about the box of the strong, independent Black woman, because like, I think if you want to be a weak, dependent Black woman, you go, girl. And you've got my support either way. And I think oddly enough, what happens is that whether you're strong or not is not fitting into that box. I think your strength is not something that can be measured by like what people's put in the box. That I see very clearly. I think your strength is in your choices. It's in the things that you do. It's in your failures. It's in, putting yourself out there. It's in, having these challenges and coming on the internet and like talking about them. That's your strength. It's not like whether you succeed and wind up in a good relationship. It's like what you choose to do. It's how you choose to live your life. I don't know how you go about accepting yourself as a weak, dependent Black woman. But I would say that you deserve your love and your compassion and your respect either way. And that you don't have to be a particular thing to like be respected, right? Like if that's the choice that you make, just kind of like what you were saying when we were talking about, fat acceptance versus fat shaming, which is like you accept the people for what they want to do.
Yeah.
And the third thing is skills, just practice. So like, this is where I'd say very concretely, like, if there's someone that you care about and you have a feeling that your mind is telling you, don't share it, just share it a tiny, tiny, tiny bit.
I've gotten better about that for sure. Yeah. I've actually been very vocal with the person that I'm seeing about these issues that I have, and they understand how hard it is for me to say the things that I want to say. Or like when I do, express my feelings, they understand how difficult it is for me, which helps a lot.
Yeah. So you actually stumbled upon a really cool technique there, which is if you have trouble conveying your feelings, what you can actually do is go meta. So go one level above it and say, hey, I'm having trouble conveying my feelings.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. It's how you, because then as he accepts that, then you're going to feel like more comfortable talking to him, and then you'll get there. So I'd say, use this, what Sid has stumbled upon, which is if you have trouble communicating your feelings, or even if you don't know what you feel, you can just explicitly say that to your partner. Hey, I feel like I don't know what to say right now, or it's hard for me to connect with you. And then that's actually really good. I don't know if that's a solution for you or not, but I felt compelled to give one. I don't even know why, because I usually don't feel compelled to do that.
In terms of like practicing that? Yeah, no, I definitely do think it is a solution, and I'm trying really hard at it. It's just difficult.
There's a but. There's a but.
No. It is a solution. It is hard.
What's the but? Give me the but. Is there really no but?
No, I mean, like, It is a solution, but it sucks. Like, it's not fun. Okay. It's hard. It's really hard for me to do, but I understand that it's like probably good for me. And, yeah.
And then, but what? Okay, so now so we're gonna come full circle, and maybe this will be the end. So, is it okay to not use that solution? Is it okay for it to be hard and for you to decide, actually, you know what, this is too hard for me today?
I think so, but it would not be something that I would want to give up entirely. Like if like one day I feel compelled to say something, but I'm like, oh yeah, this is too hard. I'll try again tomorrow, which is actually something that I do really often, like really often.
That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that, because I think what that's actually allowing yourself to do is be weak. Mm-hmm. I get to be weak today. I don't have to be strong every day.
Because the strong version of me would have said it and like pushed myself past what
Yeah, exactly. So Sid, I think you're doing fantastic. I'm very optimistic for you.
Thanks.
As far as being an imposter, I know we were supposed to talk about that. Any thoughts about that? How are you feeling about that whole thing?
For me, it's a feeling that doesn't have an end necessarily. Like I'm not like, oh, once I'm able to do this, I will no longer feel like an imposter. I don't know what that is going to look like. It feels like something that I'm like going to need to reframe over time, but I don't really know how to do that, But I suppose I'm like optimistic about it. I'm hopeful that eventually it'll be something that I'm able to get past. Another part of me recognizes that so many of my peers feel that way, that it's like, oh, is it just like the territory that comes with what we do?
Yeah, so let me share one or two thoughts about that. And I apologize that, we didn't spend more time on that.
That's okay.
One is, it's interesting because imposter syndrome, so we have an internal sense of identity. And that internal sense of identity has evolved, like literally, like over the course of evolution, our internal sense of identity is slow to change. So if we think about like a human being, like, like I'm a kid and then I'm a teenager and then I'm an adult, but I'm not really like a full adult. Like I'm adult in the sense that, I have a job, but I don't know how to pay my taxes yet, those kinds of things. And then we like gradually become the people that we are, right? It's not like an overnight transition. Even if you think about, your transition from high school to like confidence was like a 5 or 6 year thing. So imposter syndrome, literally like this is like what I consider, it's not really a diagnosis, but the diagnostic criteria. It's when your external value skyrockets out of proportional to your internal value. So you see this with people who become very successful very quickly. Because your internal sense of value hasn't, because generally speaking, like how successful we are is like a gradual upward slope. And what we see, especially with content creators and social media, is that people will explode, right? So 1 year ago, you were like a nursing student.
Yeah.
And now you're Sid. And so it literally takes your brain, when there's a discrepancy between your internal sense of value and your external sense of value, which happens a lot in terms of the pace of social media, imposter syndrome increases. So imposter syndrome is the gap between what you feel you are and the way that the world treats you. So I also see imposter syndrome is more common at places like Harvard, and especially places like Harvard Medical School. So the greater the external value that society places on you, the more likely you are to experience imposter syndrome. So I think over time, assuming that your growth starts to become somewhat linear at some point, the imposter syndrome will slowly, hopefully, start to fade. The second thing that you can do is kind of take a step back and, like we were sort of saying, like acknowledge that your external value doesn't actually correlate with your internal value. And that who you are is who you are. And just because you blew up on Twitch doesn't mean that you're a special person, that you're just a regular person. And this kind of gets back to all that deserving stuff and lucky stuff and things like that. And what I ultimately tend to find is that when people really work through this idea of what you're responsible for and what you deserve credit for is your actions, not your follower count, which is separate from this idea that, obviously you can you make calculated decisions to like grow your brand and things like that, right? So we're not saying it's random. But when your fundamental sense of value does not get determined by your following. Yeah. And the more that you navigate that, I think the better imposter syndrome will get. The last thing is to accept yourself for being weak, because then you don't have to be an imposter. Like you can just suck. And that's okay. Like in the moment that you being successful and sucking has the same weight for you, imposter syndrome won't be a thing. You looked like you were about to say something.
No, I was so present in listening to you that whatever I was about to say is gone.
Great. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I guess it's like the imposter syndrome thing. It's like a buzzword that you hear so often, but I've never had it explained in a way where it's like, the way that you explain the deficit. And it definitely makes a lot more sense for me in that way. Like that made some things click for sure.
And so the way that I think about it is people are treating you in a way that you don't deserve, you don't feel you deserve to be treated, right? And that's because you deserve to be treated this way, but this is the way that people are treating you. And it's in that gap that imposter syndrome exists. Yeah. So if you detach from the idea that you deserve to be treated a particular way, then you'll be fine too. Yeah. So you can grow as a person. You can cave your viewership, which in turn will not actually fix things. Because you'll still feel like a failure. You just won't feel like an imposter syndrome. You won't feel like an imposter because they're treating you the way that you deserve to be treated, which is still negative. And then, you can grow your internal sense of value over time, and like, nice, healthy, real life relationships where you express vulnerability and people value you anyway, because, hey, I know it's kind of weird, Sid, you're allowed to be boring. No, you're not. That's not, I can see it in your, you're like, no, I'm not. That's fine.
It's hard to feel that way, but I know I am. It's just like, I think on top of, like I have this job in entertainment, essentially. I'm like, I never want to come on stream and be boring, but I don't want to be boring for like my friends or the people around me either, but I know it's okay to be boring. Like if I just want to sit on the couch all day and do nothing, that's okay. It's okay for others. It's not okay for me.
Yeah, so we're going to try one last thing. So I think you're right, Sid. Like, other people can be boring, but like you've got to be better than that.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel when I say that? Other people can afford that. You can't afford that.
Well, yeah, obviously it feels bad.
Does it?
I mean, it feels in line with the way that I feel about myself, but it's not something that, it's my fear that allows me to say that to myself, but I don't want to hear other people say it to me, right? Because now my fear is realized in you saying that I'm not, or like I can't be boring.
So that's it makes a lot of sense. But I would say that something weird also happened, is that you realized the irrationality of your thoughts when I supported them.
Yeah.
Because you started calling it your fear, right? So when I say, oh, like you're allowed to be boring, the voice in your head pops up and resists it. When I say, oh man, it's like tough because like it sounds like you really can't afford to be boring. And then you're like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Even though it agrees. So you see how that happens?
Yeah.
Where like whatever, like if I agree with you, like your mind will naturally pop up and defend against it and say, that's my fear. And that's actually progress. So this is the first time that you've taken that thought process and you've applied the possessive to it. Instead of saying I am, you said it's my fear. Literally, I think it's the first time in the interview. And that's actually how you overcome it. Like something just shifted in your neurons where you own it now instead of it being true. Does that make sense? You're externalizing it as a fear, which is good. So that's good.
I feel like that became apparent to me when we were talking about my insecurities and how they're like my insecurities that I'm projecting, and like that's what I'm afraid of.
Yep.
And that I didn't get it from shows and stuff like that. So
the cool thing about your insecurities is that they're not truths. The problem with our insecurities is we're afraid they're truth, but it's not. It's just your fucking insecurity. You're just carrying that shit around. Yeah. I think it's clear to me that you were... Oh, shit. Can I say this? I was about to say awesome. But you can accept that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're awesome. We're agreed.
I think I accept compliments well.
Okay.
Yes, sure.
And also, I think you'd be great even if you weren't awesome.
Thank you.
Actually, you know what? You're not great all the time, but I'm still a big fan.
That's fair. That's fair.
How does that feel?
That's fair. Yeah. That feels good.
All right. Well, I sometimes teach meditation on stream. Are you interested in learning something, or you want to pause or kind of just bow out at this point, or what?
I mean, I'm down. The issue that I've had with like meditation and stuff like that in the past is I don't have any visual imagery, and so people are like, I don't produce my own visual imagery. That Aphantasia, you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
So people will be like, oh, like imagine a beach or something like that. I don't imagine it, and so then I can't like do that part of it. But I'm down to hang out and try.
We're not going to have you visualizing anything.
Okay. If I don't have to visualize, I'm cool.
Wait, what is this condition that you have? Is this like a medical thing?
Well, it's like not, it's something that I heard about recently, and it's not like diagnosed or anything like that, but it's a thing called Aphantasia where you don't, like my entire reality changed recently when I realized that other people see imagery in their head. They can actually picture things, whereas I can't at all.
Okay, so we don't need you to picture anything. I can teach you meditation without imagery. I personally am not. I actually wonder if maybe my problem with guided meditations, because I don't do guided meditations. And maybe it just occurred to me that maybe the reason I don't is because I've never been able to do them. I wonder if I actually have the same thing.
You should look it up.
Curious.
Definitely look it up.
Because like I've always I don't teach most of the meditation apps and stuff will be like guided imagery meditations.
Yes. And I'm like, this does nothing.
It does nothing for me. So we're okay. So we're going to teach you a very simple breathing meditation. It's going to be a focusing meditation. Okay. So I want you to raise your right hand, spread out your fingers. Okay. And then I want you to fold these 2 fingers down. Can you do that? Good. And then can you put these together? Okay. Hopefully this will work with your nails. You can close your nostrils with your nails, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
got it.
Okay. So what we're going to do is sit up straight.
Okay.
I'm going to teach you. Huh?
Oh, I was sitting crisscross. So I put my feet down.
Oh, no. You can sit crisscross, like you were sitting cross-legged.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Just your back should be straight. But okay. So I'm going to teach you a technique called Nadi Shuddhi or Nadi Shodhana, which means it means cleansing of your energy channels. Okay. So what we're going to do is block our right nostril with our right thumb and breathe in through our left. Hold the breath and switch. And breathe out. Excellent. Now breathe in from the same nostril. Switch. And breathe out. In. Switch. Out. Good. Now close your eyes and continue at your own pace. Remember to breathe in and then switch with a full breath of air and then breathe out and then in through the same nostril. Switch out. Beautiful. In again. Switch. Out. In. Switch. Out. You're doing great. We're going to do 3 more breaths. In. Switch. Out. In. Switch. Out. And last one. In. Switch. Out. Excellent. Now let your eyes stay closed. Let your hand relax. And I want you to sit in this space. Sit in the experience of yourself. Notice your breathing. Just be. Notice that in this moment, you are not a strong, independent Black woman or a weak, independent Black woman. You're not even Black, and you're not even a woman. You're just you. When you're ready, go ahead and come on back.
That was nice. I like breathing exercises.
What was your experience like? I know it's kind of a weird question.
Very present. I feel like a lot of the time I'm living ahead of myself or behind myself. But yeah, being able to like practice breathing and just focus on my body and what I'm doing feels very present.
Were you thinking things?
Not really. I like was kind of like when you said just be in the moment, I was like, I have a fan on, so I was like hearing whirring, which was nice, and I just like felt very relaxed, not thinking about too much.
So good job. You've now meditated. So the interesting thing about meditation is that it's the absence of thoughts. That's really what we're shooting for. So it's kind of weird, but like you're present, you exist, you're awake, you're conscious, but you're not thinking. And it's normal for us to have thoughts here or there, but like as we focus on the practice, as we drive our attention towards a particular thing, the thinking will actually stop. And so like now we're like thinking again. And so just keep doing that. And as you do that, I think even like insecurities and stuff will start to kind of like melt away. Because I don't know if this makes sense, but even in that brief moment, if you look at the middle of the practice, like you weren't emotionally unavailable. You weren't emotionally available. None of those things actually existed. You're just you. Right? All that stuff is like crap that our mind makes. It's like all these insecurities we have and stuff. Like it's all function of the mind. It's not actually who we are. And so stepping outside of your mind from time to time can actually alleviate some of the pressures of what our mind places on us. Like, oh my God, you have to be better, Sid. You have to be so good. You can't be boring. Like, no, you can just be you. You're just who you are. You're great the way you are. Even with all your flaws.
Yeah.
Cool. Any last thoughts or questions before we wrap up?
No. I guess if this is goodbye, I just want to say thank you very much. It's been great talking with you and practicing. I would say today I practiced being vulnerable for sure.
Yes, you did.
So I appreciate the guidance, definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate everything about what you brought today. And I really just love the way that, I think you've been very introspective and you understand a lot of things. So I think we covered a lot of topics where usually we just focus on one thing, but I think, it's clear that you've thought about this stuff a lot. And do you want to just tell us one last time, like where we can find you on the internets and what you do?
Yeah. So you can find me pretty much on all socials under Sydeon. I am a Twitch streamer, but, do other platforms and everything. Play a lot of Valorant, but other games too. So yeah, that's kind of my deal.
Yeah, awesome. And she's definitely not boring, right?
Yeah, guys, I'm not boring, I swear.
Well, thanks a lot, Sid. And best of luck to you.
Thank you.
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that a ton. It means a lot.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.